what is football to you? I mean, what does it
Well, football is life.
Really?
Football is life.
He's arguably the most charismatic manager we've ever seen.
And then he was absolutely superb.
You've probably heard the legends about Brian Clough, the stubborn, sharp-tongued manager who refused to play by anyone else's rules. But what most people forget is how little he actually had. No money, no stars, and a squad nobody expected to survive, let alone win. If you care about football history, you already know the headline numbers. 2 European Cups, a league title with Derby, another with Nottingham Forest, but the real story is how those 4 years completely rewrote what was possible in English football.
You mention the name Brian Clough to anybody now, they smile and they talk about things that he said or did, you know, and
Because this was more than just a winning run. It was a transformation, turning Forest from second division strugglers into European champions, and doing it with style, confidence, and clarity no one could copy. For Clough, football was more than just a game to be won. It was something to be fought for with absolute passion.
Football has got to win, I believe, passionately.
So, how did an outspoken, working-class maverick achieve the impossible? And why did his genius burn so bright, yet end so abruptly? The early life. Born in 1935 in Middlesbrough, Brian Clough came from humble beginnings. Valley Road, a cramped house filled with 7 children, where 3 brothers shared a bed, and warmth came from closeness, not luxury.
5 brothers and 2 sisters. Yeah, all in there. And the warmest I've ever been in bed was when we used to sleep 3 in a bed. There was me, our Bill, and our Gerald, 3 in the bed. And gradually, as they all left, you then got 2 in a bed and 1 in a bed. We were never cold. Never ever cold.
Football ran through the family's veins. All 5 brothers played, constantly debating who was the best. But young Brian wasn't the obvious talent everyone assumed he'd be.
I wasn't the best footballer in the family, and I certainly wasn't anywhere near a so-called star. I never got picked for any form of, it used to be in North Riding in those days, and the South Riding and all that type of thing. I never got picked for any single solitary side. I was a very small child, and I didn't grow until I grew between 16 and 19. But no selection at all for any side. I struggled to get in the school side in Martin Grove, but I was a fanatic, and we all played. 5 of us all played in the same side, actually.
From those tight streets and tighter bedrooms emerged a hunger that would define him. Not the best, but determined to become it. Not chosen, but refusing to be overlooked. The playing career. The small boy grew, and when he did, he became unstoppable. George Camsell, Middlesbrough's legendary striker, signed him. What followed was remarkable.
And he signed me just before I started my national service. And for that privilege, of course, signing up Middlesbrough before I did my national service, I was retained on £1 a week, which was a lot of money for me because I was getting £2.10 at the ICI. Where I graduated from a messenger boy to a worse messenger boy.
But once Clough broke through, records fell. 251 goals in 274 games. An England debut. The football world at his feet. Then, on Boxing Day 1962, everything changed.
I knew it was serious, obviously, because somebody stuck me in hospital, had bed and that type of thing, and come round, you know, a few days later. But you never believe at 27 you finished in anything, do you? Not especially if you're an athlete. I'd been fortunate enough never to be injured before, and I was, you know, stuck in a hospital bed and specialist and plaster and all that normal type of things, but you never believe you finished.
At 27, his playing career was over. For most men, this would be the end of the story. For Brian Clough, it was just the beginning. The partnership begins. Lost and uncertain, Clough found salvation through an old teammate, Peter Taylor, a goalkeeper he'd played alongside at Middlesbrough. Taylor saw something in Clough that even Clough couldn't see yet.
But he was manager of Burton Albion when I took over the job at Hartlepool. And his ambition was to get into league management. And I rang him and I said, I'm taking the Hartlepool job, do you fancy coming? And I met him at the Chase Hotel at York. and didn't actually talk him into joining, just showed him some pound notes. 200 actually.
It seemed like an odd pairing, but their skills were perfectly complementary. Taylor had an extraordinary gift. He could identify talent that everyone else missed.
Peter had the ability to establish who could play and who couldn't better than anybody in football at his period of time.
Even you?
Yeah, well, that was his forte.
Yeah.
He used to go out, find the players, I used to sign them,
Yeah.
do a little bit of management, coaching, put a side together, and win a few trophies.
Taylor would find them, Clough would mold them. Together, they were about to revolutionize English football. The Derby Revolution. In 1967, Derby County were in crisis. Bottom of the second division, the town's economy declining, the club directionless. Chairman Sam Longson took a gamble on 32-year-old Clough. The players quickly learned everything had changed. Clough moved fast to fix problems and clear the way for success. His methods were revolutionary and intimidating. Players who resisted were crushed or discarded. Those who embraced it thrived.
People that actually resented it or tried to stand up to him or tried to get their own way or tried to use player power, they were very quickly trodden on and disappeared out of sight fairly quickly. They tell you that fear management doesn't work, but he made it work.
Results came fast. Within 2 years, Derby were in the first division. By 1972, they were champions. Pipping their arch rivals Leeds on the final day. The town was transformed.
Everyone was just totally wrapped up in what was happening down here at the baseball ground. With the football team that had gone from being bottom of the second division, struggling in the dumps, and everybody was doom and gloom. Suddenly the respect of the whole town had improved, and there were even reports that the production at Rolls-Royce, who had a big factory here then, went up about 10% if we won on a Saturday.
The Clough philosophy. But what made Clough different? It was more than motivation or discipline. It was a complete philosophy about how football should be played and who should play it.
Look for talent first,
Yes.
then we look for a bit of character, then we look for a bit of honesty.
Talent alone wasn't enough. Clough wanted the right people. In an era of long balls and physical intimidation, he demanded something radical. Beauty combined with winning. Football played on the ground, not in the clouds. And discipline was non-negotiable. Clough believed bad behavior on the pitch destroyed everything he was building. His teams were notorious for their cleanliness.
The discipline of the players on the pitch I think was remarkable. No red cards at Nottingham Forest, Very few yellow cards. He wouldn't allow that.
His solution was radical. Hold managers accountable too.
I recommended 30 odd years ago that when a player was repeatedly getting booked, for example, and in trouble, not only discipline him, but discipline the manager as well. You go and find Alex Ferguson 50,000 quid, and knowing how tight Alex is with money.
But beneath the tough exterior was something deeper. Clough treated his players as human beings, not just footballers. Everyone, from star to substitute, was treated the same. That philosophy built more than football teams. It built loyalty. The Outspoken Maverick. Success at Derby brought something else, national attention, and Clough loved the spotlight. His opinions were fearless, his criticisms brutal, his confidence boundless.
We can all talk a good game of football, but you've got to win something. It's a hard job. It's a difficult job, especially when you're working for people who know nothing about football. That is directors.
He called himself Old Big Head, a nickname that was both self-deprecating and deadly serious. Clough knew he was good, and he wasn't afraid to say it.
Well, I think on occasions I have been big head. It's as simple as that. I think most people are when they get in either into the limelight or all that type of thing. I think I call myself big head just to remind myself not to be. One of the things I laugh about is, and have laughed about over the years, when I used to have to go for interviews for jobs, before I got on. And they were asking me questions, and they'd got no idea about football. Now, how can you ascertain if somebody knows something about something if you know bugger all yourself?
His outspokenness made him enemies in boardrooms across England, but it also made him the people's champion, a working-class hero who refused to bow to authority. Behind the bravado was a method. Clough believed that relaxation, not tension, brought out greatness. He applied this to himself and demanded it from his players, even if it terrified him in the process. The Leeds disaster. In 1974, Donny Reevy left Leeds United to manage England. Leeds, the reigning champions, needed a replacement. The board chose Brian Clough. It seemed perfect. It was catastrophic. Clough had spent 5 years publicly criticizing Leeds. Now he was walking into their dressing room as their manager.
I think they've been champions and they've not been good champions in the sense of wearing the crown remarkably well. I think they could have been a little bit more loved. I'm going to bring a bit of warmth and a little bit more honesty and a little bit more of me into the setup, I hope.
But warmth wasn't what followed.
We were back pre-season training 3 or 4 days. You hadn't spoken to anybody. And Billy, on behalf of the players, went to the players, look, I think we should have a meeting with the players as the new manager. He said, yeah. So we were all sitting waiting in the players' lounge where we used to have. When Cloughie came in, he said, right, you fucking lot. As far as I'm concerned, all those medals you've won, you can get them and throw them in that bin over there.
The relationship was toxic from the start. Clough's intimidation that worked at Derby only sparked contempt at Leeds. Within weeks, players revolted, results fell, and after 44 days, Leeds sacked him. The €100,000 payout couldn't heal the blow to his pride. Redemption at Nottingham Forest. 4 months of unemployment followed. For a man whose identity was football management, the emptiness was unbearable. Then came Nottingham Forest, another struggling second division club, another chance at redemption.
We had a real furious Brian Clough. We had a man who was, desperate to go and prove himself one of the great managers of all time.
At first, Clough worked alone, but he needed his partner. Peter Taylor left Brighton to join the revolution again. That missing spark returned. Together, they began finding diamonds in the rough. John Robertson, overweight and directionless. Larry Lloyd, finished at Coventry Reserves. Kenny Burns, a troublemaker nobody wanted.
We were a group of players, in many aspects, just trying to find our feet. But we'd had a few bad experiences, with the manager before, John, and I particularly couldn't get on with him no matter what we did. But when Brian Clough arrived in '75, changed our lives, changed our whole outlook in football.
If he hadn't come along at that stage, I think I would have gone out of the game because my career wasn't going very well, and as I say, a lot of people have blamed everything else other than myself. And it was when he came in the door, basically told me what he thought was wrong with me. I didn't live right, I was slovenly, I was too heavy. But he thought I had talent, and that if I applied myself properly, he thought he could do it.
The miracle season. Promotion came in 1977. Forest were back in the first division. But what happened next defied all logic. In their first season back at top level, Forest went 42 league games unbeaten. They were winning. But more importantly, they were playing football that inspired dreams.
Just get on with how I feel the game should be played. We don't play in the clouds. If God wanted us to play football in the clouds, he'd have put grass there.
The foundation was defensive solidity. Peter Shilton, Britain's most expensive goalkeeper, was worth every penny.
I said before we kicked the ball, I thought we qualified for Europe, no more. And that would have been an achievement. But having signed Shilton, I said then that anything was possible.
They won the league championship. They won the League Cup. A provincial club from Nottingham had conquered England, but Clough wanted more. He wanted Europe. European glory. The European Cup had haunted Clough since 1973, when Derby were eliminated by Juventus in controversial circumstances.
The match over in Juventus, where we lost 3-1, was the only football game I've ever played in where I nearly ended up in tears, knowing that we'd been cheated in front of UEFA officials, the television cameras, a packed crowd.
We weren't hurt so much losing it, because all footballers get hurt losing it, but we know we'd been cheated.
6 years later, with Nottingham Forest, he had another chance, and this time he was obsessed with winning it. His methods for keeping players sharp were uniquely Clough.
So I'll get you whatever you want. I'll do anything for you. I'll rub your legs. I'll give you a few bob. He'll do anything to get a result. That's Brian Clough. He'll do anything to get a result.
On May 30th, 1979, in Munich, Trevor Francis headed the only goal against Malmo. A provincial Midlands club were champions of Europe. 1 year later in Madrid, they beat Hamburg 1-0. Back-to-back European Cups. What Clough and Taylor achieved will never be repeated. A second division club becoming European champions within 3 years. It remains football's greatest underdog story. The partnership ends. But perfection couldn't last. By 1982, the relentless pressure was taking its toll. Peter Taylor, exhausted and unfulfilled, announced his retirement.
I didn't want him to retire. He used to say, when you get shot at me, he said, you'll miss me. And I said, I know I will. He said, you won't laugh as much. And I didn't.
They parted as friends, but months later, Taylor came out of retirement to manage Derby County. Then he did the unforgivable. He signed John Robertson from Forest without telling Clough. The partnership that conquered Europe ended in bitter silence. When Peter Taylor died in 1990, they still hadn't spoken. The wound never healed.
Although he said he would never speak to Peter, he still felt a lot about him. And when he died, he did go to the funeral. I think that started the drinking. But it became an everyday thing with him. And it was sad, really. And unfortunately, it affected Brian more than most.
The legacy. Without Taylor, the magic faded. By 1993, Forest were relegated. Clough retired. His partnership with alcohol now public knowledge. The man who had been unstoppable had become his own worst enemy.
I could have been a little bit less aggressive, but then that would have taken something away from what I had. I could have been a little bit more understanding. I could have made less mistakes. But since I retired, I think of the good things. You know, when I go to bed at night, I have golden rules like everybody has. I go with good thoughts. I don't go with bad thoughts. There's no point in going to bed, because you go to bed to sleep and to dream. And I dream. Good dreams.
One trophy eluded him, the FA Cup. In 1991, Des Walker's own goal sealed that fate. Yet, what he accomplished will never be diminished. 2 clubs lifted from obscurity. 2 European Cups with a team that had no right to compete. Today, when you mention his name, people smile. They remember a man who proved football should be beautiful and that working-class kids from cramped houses could conquer Europe.
You mention the name Brian Clough to anybody now, they smile and they talk about things that he said or did, you know, and that has to be true to him.
Brian Clough died in 2004. 2 European Cups, league championships with 2 clubs, a philosophy that proved you didn't need money or superstars, just belief, honesty, and a partner who made you laugh. That was Brian Clough, the outspoken genius who broke football with a miracle.